You're listening to Lunch with the Finance Bunch, bringing money talk you can understand. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Lunch with the Finance Bunch. I'm your host, Miss Charline, and I have my co-host over there, DJ Bander. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Charline. How are we doing today?
We're good. You know what? Today, here in the Lunch with the Finance Bunch studio, we are honoring Nipsey Hussle.
Yeah.
We're honoring him and paying homage to a young man who I just found his music, his life to be cut short, but have such an impact that I feel that his legacy is going to live on forever.
Absolutely.
And you know, in our lives, the thing we want to do is have a significant positive impact. Mm-hmm. This young man was talented. He was a rapper. He was an entertainer. He was an entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. He was a community activist, a real estate owner. He was a true sense of the word landlord, right? If you look up the definition of landlord and what it really meant, that's exactly who he was. He was an investor. He was the son. He was a father, a husband, a brother, and a friend. And so when someone snatched away like that, I think people don't realize how many places they had significance.
Of course.
And in his life, he was definitely significant. You know, our show today, oddly enough, we tape our show, and our show is being taped at the exact time of his going home service.
Yeah.
So I thought it would have been very disrespectful and inappropriate to have any other show taped today than one that really talked about his legacy, his life, and how we see his life being continued through the things that he's done.
Yeah.
For me, Nipsey Hussle exemplified what Lunch with the Finance Bunch really is about. And the main reason I started the show, it was to create a platform and a bridge so that really what our tagline is, we're delivering money talk that you can truly understand. And I think when you give people a bridge from where they are to where they want to be, they find value in it.
Yeah.
And I feel that I would be remiss if I didn't share the value that I found through this life with everyone I come in contact with.
For sure.
And I think that was something that Nipsey Hussle exemplified, right?
Absolutely.
And, you know, taking your God-given talent is something that I really encourage people to do of all ages. Young people, for sure, but at any age, just taking your God-given talent, mastering it, monetizing it, and then duplicating it, right? Respecting money because you work so hard for it, and learning how to make your money grow.
I agree.
And that's really what we're about. So today in this show, you know, you and I talked last night on the phone, we talked yesterday, and so we really wanted this to pay homage and be a tribute to him. And I know he had significance in your life too.
Yeah, of course.
So, you know, what did you want?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it was really well said, what you put forward there. And yeah, it is such a tragedy on so many different levels, you know, not only, of course, the loss to the music community of losing Nipsey, but I think we talked when it first happened, and just what a downer it was for the city of Los Angeles, for California, and of course for the whole country and the world. You know, and I think it touches on a lot of different issues that I think would be good to discuss.
Absolutely.
You know, of course, there's the issue of specifically what happened with Nipsey and the tragedy. But then I also think it touches on bigger themes about, you know, why did this happen? What's happening in our culture, in our economy, in our communities, and the country as a whole that is causing us to still have the systemic violence, to have, in my opinion, which seems like somewhat like, you know, a feeling of continued jealousy towards people who are successful, anger towards people who have had successes, and I think it's, you know, something to really dissect and talk about, you know, as to what are some of the causes of this and how we can work, you know, together, everybody coming together across all platforms to try to, you know, keep these sort of tragedies from happening in the future. You know
what? I agree. And, you know, I think it happens at every level. I think that at different levels, it's seen differently, but it's the same systemic problem. And that's lack.
Yes.
People feel that if one person is succeeding, another person is not. And it couldn't be further from the truth. So I think at every level in our society, we see it. We see people being held down because people who have are afraid that too many people may have. So they do things to create a system that doesn't work for everyone.
Absolutely.
Right?
Well, we talked about that.
And we talked about that. So it's at every level. You know, we microscopically look at it when you're talking about community and when you're talking about, you know, people who may not be in a position and have a lot, you know, but we don't take that same magnifying glass and point it upwards.
Right.
Because it's the same thing.
Right.
It rolls downhill.
No,
so it's
totally.
a culture here in America of lack.
Yes.
And lack creates this horrible negative vibe that says if you're successful and if you obtain some level of success, I can't do it because you're already there.
Of course. And
right?
we've talked about this.
There's room for everyone.
There's room
honestly.
for everyone, but I do believe that what's happening is a combination of the fact that I do believe, unfortunately, sometimes in America, our culture is very competitive. It's very much based on what I have and what you don't. And when you combine that with what I do believe we've discussed this, which is issues of income inequality, class inequality, you open the door to more, you know, tension and a more of a sense of desperation and helplessness.
Excellent. Yeah.
And, you know, I think that that's something that's really important to speak about is that, you know, if there was maybe a feeling of more opportunity, instead of somebody hating on Nipsey and being like, I hate this dude because he's successful and he has something I don't have, they might have a different attitude and approach to it, more like, okay, like if Nipsey can do it, I can do it. If there's maybe I can work with him and make something happen for myself the way he did for himself. But we're not, unfortunately, really in that time. And I think we see it, you know, a lot. We see it in government, in politics, this move. And yeah, I agree. It's not all just about the inequality. I do think a lot of it is also attitude. It's like, if you have an attitude like, I hate this person because of what they have, that's the first recipe of failure for yourself, in business. It's more of an attitude that needs to be, what can I learn from this person? What can these people teach me? And I think that unfortunately was something that, caused this person to, have this sort of jealousy towards Nipsey, so.
Right. I try to find, the good in the evil, and I try to find the rainbow in the cloud. And I think that because of this tragedy, I think there's going to be a level of consciousness that's raised, because you can't swing a pendulum so far to the left,
right,
so far negative, that, the law says that if it swings so far to the left, it has to return to the right with equal or greater force.
Yes.
So I want to believe that this horrifying situation that ended in a young man's life being taken away from him, his family, and his community, I want to believe that it can swing equally with more force to the right and have people more conscious, more sensitive to their surroundings, more sensitive to what they can become, because what he did was lay the blueprint. And so if you look at the blueprint that was laid, it can be followed and duplicated. Any successful plan can be followed and duplicated. And, the thing that bothers me the most about this is, we've talked about this too. In my age group, I'm not ashamed to say I'm in my 60s. And so I've seen this so many times. And I think that was the recurring hurt for me, was this is the same feeling I felt when they killed John F. Kennedy.
Yes.
This is the same feeling I felt when they killed his brother Robert.
Yep.
This is the same feeling I felt when they killed Martin Luther King. This is the same feeling I felt when Malcolm X was killed. I was alive and old enough to feel things when all of these things happened.
Right.
And I feel that way again.
For sure.
And so the pendulum has to swing back to the right for good, so that people can see there is hope. There is something good that can come from a tragedy, and that is the enlightenment that people get and the thought that they can do better. And I really believe that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And I do also believe that, and we may have to question ourselves within culture too about the amount that we glorify violence as well, and that we talk about it, nothing against Nipsey, but it is a culture where I believe like in the hip hop community too, you know, sometimes I really do appreciate the words of artists like Common and these different guys who, yeah, it's cool and it's fun and exciting sometimes to rap and lyrics. And listen, I'm a hip hop head. I love listening to all this stuff. I grew up on Mobb Deep and Nas and these guys who talk about these sort of things in it. But sometimes when you make light of violence so much in music, it can seem like an easier thing to threshold to commit violence.
Well, music is the only medium that goes into your subconscious without permission.
Exactly.
And so that's why it's all throughout the Bible, be careful what you listen to. But I also think that it has a lot to do with dominance and significance. Violence, to me, its originator is dominance and significance. You want to dominate and you want to feel significant. And how far will you go to feel dominant and significant?
Yeah, that's
right.
That,
how
at the end
far
of the day,
will you go?
Was what it was about.
Exactly.
You know? Absolutely, I agree with that.
You know, so I feel like we can make changes. We can make changes, and I feel like the change should start now. It should start not just because of this incident, but so that this incident isn't seen as being insignificant.
Of course. No, I absolutely agree. And what can we learn and how can we move forward as a culture?
How can we move forward in a positive way on every level? Financial literacy is multidimensional, and I feel that there are so many avenues of learning here that we can obtain, and I'm just grateful to be in a position to have a voice, to be able to help in some way.
No, likewise. And that we know that, you know, we have to push the values that we feel will bring about change and will bring about a more peaceful society, like education and financial literacy and awareness, like we discuss.
Right. And so, you know, today we're going to bring in to the studio
the crew,
the Lunch with the Finance crew, you know, and you'll get a chance to hear their thoughts on this subject too.
Absolutely.
So we'll be right back.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Lunch with the Finance Bunch. I'm DJ Bander. With me always is Char. And we have a very special episode today. We're talking about the amazing life and legacy of Nipsey Hussle. And we are discussing a range of things having to do with his tragic loss and as well as people's feelings on it. Today we have our great staff, Brittany and Dina, with us. And, you know, we just like to get you guys a chance to speak and see how you feel. Brittany, maybe we can start with you. I know you're a longtime fan of Nipsey Hussle. And you know, you're gonna go into your deck of collections to get us some records later. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about what Nipsey's significance was to you and his music. And you know.
So I was introduced to Nipsey Hussle by my boyfriend, who's born and raised in LA, knew all the LA rappers and stuff, and he, you know, played me some of his music. And my favorite genre is rap. And I believe that that's because it's like closest to poetry for me, and I love poetry. And so, you know, at first listen, I'm like, yes, I like him. His music, it's just like rap music. And then we just like through the years listened to him more, and my boyfriend noticed. He was like, hey, Nipsey's changing. Like I'm seeing something in his music, I'm feeling it. And so we would listen more, and we just low-key started studying him. Like, dang, like that's tight. Like Nipsey is on something different. And so I low-key began studying him myself because I'm just interested in a spiritual awakening in people that looks different from, I guess, yoga communities that I'm used to, you know, different things. And even looking more at Tupac too. So, and just even in my business endeavors and motivating myself, I chose him to listen to. When I'm working out, let me just throw on this Nipsey, because it's upbeat and it's motivational.
Right.
So I just kind of took a turn more towards conscious rap, and I was happy that he started transforming that way. And he was just so motivational, just knowing where you come from, coming from the hood, and being able to be like, yes, you can do it this way. You can still be hood. You can still be true to yourself, who you are, where you came from. But yet you can break these barriers and you can get to new levels in your life, and it doesn't have to look like someone else's success or the success that we've been told it has to look like, or how we have to sound.
And he wasn't a mumble rapper, right? That's another thing I really loved about Nipsey.
Yeah.
It was like, dude was a real lyricist, you know, and, you know, I love the old school, you know, the Queensbridge, New York rappers and all these guys. And even though he was a West Coast dude, he what I always appreciate about him, because I never grew up listening to as much West Coast music, but he was really always, very poetic, always dropping real lyrics in his stuff. It
and
wasn't
you could
just
understand what he was saying.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I like.
yeah. Charlie was like, I could hear the man.
Yeah.
I could understand what
Yeah.
he was saying, so that made it significant for me. What about you, Dino?
Yeah, I started listening to Nipsey when I was 12 because my dad introduced me to Nipsey. Back then, I had like long braids just like Nipsey. He had pulled out his mixtape, Buzz Ain't Got No Name, Volume 2. And whoever knows that mixtape knows on the cover he has like long braids, a hat on, and everything like that. So my dad showed me like, oh, you look just like this guy. I didn't know who Nipsey Hussle was at the time, so I was like, that's weird. I do. I didn't become a fan of Nipsey until 2013 when he dropped his mixtape Crenshaw, and I was able to, I was living in that area, and you see Nipsey Hussle all the time, so it wasn't like he was a stranger. Everybody in LA, especially in like South Central, that part, everyone has a Nipsey Hussle story. I don't care who you are, what age, what whoever, whether you liked him or didn't, you have a Nipsey Hussle story. Because it wasn't like he was just a rare type person you see once in a while. You saw him at least once a week. You see Nipsey Hussle, and you interacted with him. So when you heard he was gone, it was like a huge impact. Like it's like losing a family member, almost.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a cultural icon.
Exactly.
Literally.
Now, his community service, I was really digging into some of the stuff he did, and the level of community service that he did was so multifaceted. It's all over the place. From feeding people who didn't have food, to giving jobs and opportunity to people, to starting a STEM program, in the community. That was big for me because, STEM is something that, we're encouraging young people to get involved in STEM because it's an equalizer. It puts you on the same platform internationally, right? For job opportunities. So for him to have a STEM program,
It's really deep.
right in the community, and to understand how important that is to everyone, including the community, just to me was just like, wow. So to me, he was just like multifaceted, all over the place. Like you said, you'd see him in the community and you'd see him at least once a week. Everybody had a story about him. He made himself available and accessible.
All the time.
And I just
All the
love,
time.
I love his story about how, as a real estate guy myself, I just love the story about how he basically hustled his way from hanging out in front of a store to buying
owning
it
the
with
whole commercial space.
and bringing in his own family
Yes.
into the deal, bringing his father and his family, and really creating generational wealth, which is something so important to give security to your family that we discuss on this show. And he was such an icon of that, and showing, like a juxtaposition to so much of hip hop culture, which is like you get money and you just blow it on needless things, and you show cars and trips and jets, and here he was being like, nah, I'm putting it back into the community and being very smart with it, and glorifying intelligence, glorifying financial literacy and making smart decisions. And I just think that's so amazing that he did that, and it's rare. And I just hope that that's something that the hip hop community learns from and takes from this loss, the importance of what he was preaching, and that we need more of that and less of teaching young people to just get it and spend it, and just because there's just so much of that. And anyway, so that's just something that I really think is an amazing thing about him.
And I think I respect the consciousness shift that you were talking about, Brittany. And it's a consciousness shift that helps us to understand where true value is.
Yes.
And so that consciousness shift that he was trying to create is something that, when we were talking about that pendulum swing, I feel like that's what's going to move us in the right direction after this tragedy, because that's what he was about, having a mind shift so that that, yes, it's great, jewelry, cars, big homes, all of that has its place. But that's not
after you've created the wealth.
After you've created the wealth and you have the wealth
to back
pay
it up.
For
exactly
the expensive things that you have, and your security is the fact that you have security, right? And so
spend interest, not principal.
Spend interest, not principal.
That's it.
But that's the message he delivered, and that's what he taught, and that's how he lived his life. You know, I saw an interview when he was, I think, 18 years old, and they were talking to him about, you know, what he wanted. And he was like, yo, I'm not interested in, you know, like big chains and diamonds and cars and all that. I want some, you know, I want to own some property, you know?
Yeah.
And so, you know, even to have that level of consciousness and to realize that wealth is multifaceted and it's not on what you look like, but it's on what you actually do possess and have control over,
Yes.
is amazing. And we talk about that all the time. And so to have young people exposed to that level of consciousness, for me, it takes me to a happy place.
And I hope
And
that
in a way,
I'm sorry. No, go
and
ahead.
in a way that we understand, like on the show,
Right.
it's like money talk you can understand. But he's putting it with poetry. He's putting it in the perspective of, this is what you need to do. You know, young king, you know, this is what you need to do. This is how you
Straight
have
up.
to do it. And this is what's going to come from it. You know, and I think that was very important too, is like, it's not, you know, these financial video, or, you know, like these gurus saying, this is what you need to do. It's someone that we know and someone that we
Right.
trust and someone that we can see. That's
Exactly.
doing
Yeah,
the work
you know what?
too.
In life, there are leaders and there are followers, and Nipsey was clearly a leader. Like
Yeah.
he was a leader in the sense of, it's like he wasn't he didn't care about the pressures of like what he should be doing or how he should be showing his success. He was very clear minded about what his chess moves were, and he executed those. And I think that's, you know, really admirable.
Moving
Yeah,
with
and,
intention.
And you know, all through his, he has many projects that people don't even know about, like so like the basic Nipsey fans, but like throughout all his projects, it's like, even though he's talking about, you know, gang banging and jewelry though, in certain, you know, a lot of his music,
Right.
a lot of his like more like inspirational like type things, like talking about investments and everything like that, it's all coded in his music that people don't really pay attention to.
Right.
Yeah.
Most people, he's just a regular, you know, average LA gang banging rapper. But when you really listen to what he's saying, it's
No,
like,
he was dropping those
No,
those
yeah.
like
nuggets.
seriously, you know. So
Yeah.
That's why it's cool. If you like listen to his full discography, you'll be like, oh, yo, no, gang rap. Like there is a transformation, and you can tell. Like, oh, the songs are switching up a little bit. Oh, I see that line dropped in there, and it's like, okay, let me take a look. You know, so that was really cool.
And the sophistication that he possessed, you could see it on many different spheres. Like you could see it not only in his business decisions, but then also like musically. Like as a producer, I can really hear just how tasteful he was, sampling, vocals, everything that he did was just so smooth and clean and very much his own lane. And I think that's super special because it's like nowadays you got so many throwaway artists that they just hop on these random beats and they just say random stuff that sounds cool. And
Right.
I think it's important to recognize that he was really an artistic renaissance. Like he really had his own thing. He was a true avant-garde in what his sound he was trying to create, which I think is really important too.
So, you know, I think with the range of ages here, you know, it's easy to see how he impacted, you know, not just one generation, but
course.
multiple. You know, when we were talking about the age range on the team, you know, it goes from 20 to 60. You
Yeah.
know, and so in every age group in between. And I find that fascinating because that way every age group has a voice.
Yeah.
You know, and if we can bring those voices together, you know, and I think that's what Nipsey stood for, was bringing those voices together. He employed young people, but he also employed older people.
And his story had such an impact.
Yes.
You know, even my father, we had dinner the other night and he was like, so tell me a little bit about this Nipsey Hussle guy
Right.
who passed away. I mean, and
you're
I
like,
couldn't
what?
believe he brought it
Yeah.
up. He doesn't
Yeah.
follow hip hop. He's not really into my scene with music at all.
Right.
But he wanted me to tell him about who this man was
Yeah.
and about it because he was reading his article in the Times. And it was like the first thing he wanted to talk about at dinner. So that just speaks, I feel,
Absolutely.
to the impact of this story. Even if you
Yes.
didn't know, I don't think my father knew about Nipsey Hussle before this, but when he read his bio and he was reading about the whole story, he was like, well, like I got to ask my son about this when I see him. And I think that's a really important thing to think about. It's like he really did have a generational impact.
Definitely. And it was so funny because you and I talked about that too. When you were talking about your dad, I was out in Orange County having dinner one night, and, you know, there was a family sitting next to me who couldn't be further from people you would ever see in the community. You
Oh,
know,
right, I remember
that
this.
family was completely the opposite.
Yep.
You know, from them being Caucasian to, you know, you could basically see how affluent that family was.
Right.
And it was like the typical family, right? White family. And it was the dad, the mom, the daughter who wasn't married, the daughter who's having a baby, and her husband, which was their son-in-law. And they're having this conversation, and they're sitting so close to me, I can hear the conversation. And the conversation shifted, and they started talking about Nipsey Hussle. And I'm like, here I am in the middle of Orange County.
Yep.
This family probably couldn't find the community if they looked for it. And here they are having a conversation about this young man. And they were having a conversation from the perspective of how tragic the loss of his life was.
Yeah.
And like you said, DJ Bander, they had done their research.
Yes.
So they were able to speak to it from a perspective of the investments that he had made into the community and the properties that he purchased. And, they could see the path that he was leading in their conversation. I could hear it. So he had an impact on not just our community, not just the young community, but he had an impact on all communities.
And it's tragic that it takes something like this sometimes to put the spotlight on this stuff. But I was just saying to my father, I was like, Dad, like I know that you don't always think this, but there are lots of other entertainers and rappers that are making moves like this. You just don't hear about it, unfortunately, until they're either killed or they make some huge deal with somebody that is from a different community that then brings the mainstream into the conversation. But to be honest, it's like I was like, yeah, and that's why this is a big deal. Like this was a big loss, and also, I think some people kind of think, oh, well, like this is something that's going on. Also, like these rappers, they're always shooting each other. And I was like, honestly, like not really. Like there hasn't been a big loss like this in the rap community, really significant for more than a decade. Like this was a huge, this was a huge event.
Yeah, I was speaking to my mom about this. She was saying like the way everyone's reacting all over the world. She said she didn't see this reaction until since Michael Jackson.
Michael Jackson.
09.
Yeah.
That's why it just seems very divine to me. Like there's just like this eeriness about it.
It really is.
Because he is having such a huge impact. So your conversation that you overheard, and I'm just like, whoa.
Yeah.
Why we're seeing him everywhere? People are showing love on every level. And I truly believe that energy does not die. It just gets transferred. Like he had a purpose. He served his purpose, and his purpose is still being served out. I watched this video clip of his mother, and she was like, he's good, you guys. His energy is everywhere. Right. It's everywhere. People
Mom was
are getting
incredibly
implanted
calm.
with seeds. That's what I was thinking too.
I was like, this is a really
she
deeply
knows.
Rooted woman in her spiritual center to be that collected,
right.
to even be willing to do anything on video and to not be in shambles was like incredibly amazing to see. I was like, wow, that's a strong woman. That's for sure.
So
and she did it for the children.
Yes.
She did it for the children. It was a teacher who asked her if she could interview her. And she said yes, and she did it for the children. So you can see legacy at every level because that's his mom. So if her heart is that big and that pure, you can only imagine what her children would be like. Beautiful. And her son is a reflection of the love she showed. So I agree with you, Brittany. I agree with you. His legacy doesn't just keep going, but like she said,
the victory lap continues.
The victory lap.
It's going to live on through all of us. It's going to live on through our endeavors. It's going to live on. We're just always going to have that energy. I'm always put a little checkered flag at the end of everything now.
That's a good idea. That's a really good idea. I love that. So now when we come back, I want to wrap this up, but I really want us to talk about a little bit more about Nipsey Hussle and the impact he's had on us, every generation, and celebrating his homegoing and really valuing this loss in the way that it should be seen, is that the marathon will continue.
Absolutely.
Right.
I'm Miss Charline.
And I am DJ Bander.
And we'll be right back. And we're back in studio with DJ Bander over there.
Hello.
I'm Miss Charline, and I'm the host of the show. And today we decided to, just have a moment, take a moment, and really honor the life of Nipsey Hussle. And so we decided to bring the team in because they are definitely Nipsey Hussle fans and they followed him. And so I just wanted to make sure we gave our team a platform so that they can talk about their feelings on this topic. So, Brittany, you had something to say.
Yes, I do. I just really want to share a quote because just with him dying the way he passed, it being someone from his community, it just really brought to my attention the fact that we're all working towards progress, we're working towards building things, but we need to take care of ourselves on the inside as well.
Yes.
And the quote is from my all-time favorite lady. Well, in her book, Bell Hooks, she quotes Toni Cade Bambara. And the quote is, "When wounded individuals come together in groups to make change, our collective struggle is often undermined by all that has not been dealt with emotionally." And to me, we're striving for greatness. We're trying to teach, kids about technology. We're trying to invest in stocks and bonds and real estate. But all of that can be effed up from someone's insecurities, from their emotional things that haven't been dealt with, just trauma that shows up in actions. And we have to really be cognizant of that because it can mess us up.
Yeah, I believe that to be true. Yeah. Okay, Dana.
Okay, I just wanted to say firsthand, before Nipsey had bought out the whole Hyde Park Plaza, I went to each store for whatever reason, whether it was get my phone paid or get a haircut. And, before he took it over, each one of those places messed me up. I went to go get a haircut. It was a different person that Nipsey didn't know. It was just someone renting it out, Got a haircut, messed it up, didn't go there again. Went to go get my phone paid, go get a new phone. Didn't like the same people. Couple months later, he got, he starts buying the property and everything, and then he started employing his own people. And then it was just a whole different experience meeting people that he knew that treated me with more respect, people who were, gang affiliated and things like that, who you would, normally wouldn't, come across.
Right.
And, I just wanted to say, Nipsey, he really cared about his community. The fish market, there's a fish market there also that, it wasn't quality fish. He was saying on the news, I remember, we bought the fish market. We want to make sure it's quality fish and it's fresh for everybody who comes across it, so we're not just eating all types of stuff. And it's just, I appreciate, what he did. And I also have a quote too. It's not my own, but I saw it. I think it says something like, in the end, it's not about the years of your life. It's about the life in those years.
Yep.
Yes.
And he proved that. So, RIP to Nipsey Hussle.
Absolutely. I believe that. And for me, there's a question that's left. What will we do with? How will we act? What will we do with this? How will we act differently?
Yeah.
How will we obviously respect human life going forward? How sensitive will we be to others' pain? Because I think that pain is a big part of this. And, how do we help people deal with the pain that they're feeling so that they don't inflict that pain, like Brittany said, on others? So the consciousness that's raised. And I think another thing I loved about him is he raised the consciousness about health and wellness.
Yeah.
And, really, if our community could just get healthy, both physically and mentally, we would be unstoppable. And so to have him really push in that direction, like he said, to have healthy food and healthy fish and things like that, and his whole conversation around Dr. Sebi and, that whole movement that he was moving towards, I thought just was phenomenal. And I just want to see it continue.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well,
Yeah, and I think we need to, take the lessons of Nipsey, and I think we've all done a really good job in this show today of speaking about it. And I think we're living in a really hard time right now. I think there's a lot of stuff politically that's really difficult. There's a lot of stuff culturally that's really difficult. Our young generation, I think, there's a lot of fear. We're moving in a direction where there's less certainty than there was when our parents were young. And I think, it's important for people to stay positive and in the face of tragedy like this to remember that, it will get better. There will be better times, like they say, it's like there's valleys and there's hills, and sometimes I do believe that not just with Nipsey, but in general, I think young people are a little bit feeling dismayed just in general. There's a lot of negativity, Brittany, you spoke on that a lot.
And I just think it's important that people to take this lesson and, try to push yourself to look for the positive and try to push yourself to not get, I know a lot of people are getting into depressions around this. And I think it's like not even just this, but just in general, there's a lot of things that feel down about, and I just think it's important for people to, the society can change for the better. We remember with the 60s, how much fighting for every little inch of opportunity brought to society. And we saw it in the 70s and we saw it in the 80s, just how much that hard work in the 60s took. Think about how life was so limited in some ways in the 50s.
Absolutely.
Like black people didn't have rights and women didn't have many rights and there was so much inequality. And we've come a long way from that. We have a long way to go, but we've come a long way. And fighting for that is something that's so, so important. So that's something that I want to express, which I just think is like, don't get down and, believe in your opportunity. And, that's something that Nipsey did. And I think it's something that's really, really important because the future is what we can make of it. And we're the young generation moving forward. And, we have more power. Sometimes it's easy to feel powerless, but remember that you as an individual are always empowered.
Being a child of the 60s and being a teenager of the 70s and a young adult of the 80s and a mom in the 90s and now a grandmother in 2018, every life has value.
Yes.
Every life has value. No matter what anyone says, no matter what anyone says to you, your life has value. And you're here for a purpose, and the challenge is finding what your purpose is. And here's a secret that I've seen throughout these generations is that, whatever you do that comes easy to you is your God-given talent. Raise that up, use it, magnify it, perfect it, and I'm telling you, it will take you where you need to go. You're not odd, you're unique.
That's right.
You're not odd, you're unique. We're all unique individuals, and the ones who succeed are the ones who realize their uniqueness and they embrace it and share it with the world. And that's what I was talking about when I said lack. There is no lack. It's only the lack that we attract and the lack that we put on ourselves.
That's right.
There's more than enough for everyone. God would not have made us individual and unique if there wasn't room for all of us. We just need to figure out what our uniqueness is and not get caught in the trappings of what someone else's uniqueness is and move forward with that, because that's how we're going to be successful as individuals and collectively. And I think that's one of the lessons that needs to be more spoken about here is that we are unique in our own way, which makes us all special in God's eyes.
And when the Nipsey thing, when Nipsey passed, it felt like, end of the book, but now seeing how everyone's reacting to more positive energy, it's just the next chapter,
Exactly.
And especially like the way he went. I know people say, things happen for reasons, God has his reasons or whatever, but I really believe that, we as, people, we mess up and things just happen, and then God just comes with the broom and sweeps it up and makes it all better, and then, comes out with a better outcome. So I think this is the better outcome.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. No,
I like that, Dino. That was good.
That's it.
That's our team, guys.
That's it.
I just want to say to everyone on the team, including John, who you can't see because he's filming us, I feel so blessed to have such a wonderful team around me. And, without you, there wouldn't be a me. And I know that's like corny and cliche, but it's true. And I think that in every situation that can be the case is that it takes 5 fingers to make a hand. No one rolls alone. And if they do, they're not going to get far. It's a team that's created. So know your value. You are a part of a team, or you should be a part of some team. And find value in everything you do. I value every member of this team because without this team, we wouldn't have Lunch with the Finance Fund.
For sure.
Right? It would just be me. And so, and no one would hear me because John wouldn't be filming. So everyone has value. I make light of it, but I really mean it, that I really value my team. I love you guys. And I love what you guys do for me, and you make me look good.
For
So
sure.
thank you.
We got you, Char. That's what we do.
So we're going to wrap it up. I don't know how much time we have left, but we've gone completely off script. And
That's
today
okay.
I really don't mind because honestly, this was about, just lifting and honoring the life that we think was taken too soon.
Way too soon.
But in God's eyes, we can't interpret how God sees this and how this happens. So what we have to do is just be uplifting, move forward, like DJ Bander said, and just, continue to move forward from this. And like Brittany said, be conscious of not just yourself, but the people around you, and lift them with you because you don't know what kind of pain they're in.
Yeah.
And I love what you said, Dino. I absolutely love what you said. We are all unique in God's eyes, and so we should all be lifted. So
Real
thank
talk.
you for that.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Good job, everyone. Yeah.
Absolutely. So this is Lunch with the Finance Bunch. I'm Miss Charline.
And I am DJ Bander.
And we want to thank you for taking the time to listen to this show. It's unique to any show we've done,
Yeah.
but I absolutely felt it was necessary. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Absolutely. And be sure to listen to us every Tuesday at noon and follow us at the Finance Bunch. Thank you very much on Dash
Talk X.
Thank you for watching, everyone. Be sure to find us on Instagram at The Finance Bunch and listen to us every Tuesday on Dash Talk X.